Well, hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm in the village of Broadway, as you probably know, and walking down there this morning. It's a lovely sunny morning. This afternoon's turned rather showery, so I'm hoping I can complete this one without getting too much water onto the paper. This is a view of the Lygon Arms, basically, right smack bang in the high street. So I've got my drawing down onto watercolour paper. Now I'm going to lead you through the painting process. Well, I'm working purely from memory, so that should be interesting. I seem to think we had quite a nice sky, one or two clouds, and quite a bit of depth here, so that should all work quite well. And that just going around the sign there, and it's lovely old. I love this part of the Cotswolds. It's a real pleasure to work in. I mean, you can go at varying parts of the Cotswold and see similar subjects, but really this is one of my favourite areas, Broadway. Right, I'm going to use Windsor Blue. Actually, it's Windsor Blue green shade. And look how dark that is. Look at that. See the way it's running down? That's nice, isn't it? And then what I'm going to do, going to weaken that and put in some lower clouds, particularly against that building there. So that's all gone quite well, and I love the way those clouds head off down, nice and soft. Then, of course, can bring that right the way down. I have to work fairly quick today. It's windy and there's every chance of things being blown around, as you probably have just heard. So that's something gone flying in the background. Right, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of cloud work so that it doesn't go completely disappear. And I'm just going to pop in another cloud there. There we are. And to those clouds, just a bit of warmth. And that warmth is purely raw sienna. And that goes in there, and in there. There we are. And that has to be just left now. A little bit of top to that. There we go. Right, allow that to completely dry. Now, in the lower area, it's extremely dark. For this, I'm going to use Windsor Blue again with Indian Red. So a nice bit of Indian Red in there, but a lot of blue as well. See how really dark blue that is. Right, and this is going to be in that little area there, and down in the lower area there. Now we've got cars and all sorts of things going on in the distance, but they will have to come further down. But other than that, trees down to that sort of area there. So I'm creating a real blue shade into this dark, distant area. Right, now I'm adding burnt sienna to that. Let's clean the brush a touch. Burnt sienna, a bit of raw sienna first. Burnt sienna, so it's the two siennas going in, because it's spring. So we've got a little bit of colour, but not a great deal. Trying to preserve that the Lygon Arms. Bit of burnt sienna as well in the lower area. And just want that to suggest trees in the background. There we go. And that's the way you suggest trees that are just beginning to turn. Now we're putting a little bit more warmth to them. And the reason I started off with blue is because whatever happens, that needs to maintain that earthy feel in the distance. Bit of burnt umber going in here. That's a bit severe, isn't it? Bring that up just a little higher, just around part of that. And then just drop it in here and there to the top part, or to the left hand side of those trees, and just let it do its own thing, really. Good. Now we're going with Indian red into that, because I want to show some areas of trunk work. I want to show some areas, there's some buildings there, so let's just put in a little bit of fill of buildings and things going on into the distance, but it has to be maintained. Oh, there's a lamp there. Oh, that's handy that I managed to get away without completely removing that. And then there is leaving some blue right in the distance. Pull that down like that, don't want that to be kinked. And then as I come right in to the very far distance, there will be a bit more red, a bit more Indian red to go right in that lower area, and that helps us to pick up the illusion of perhaps figures, things going on there right in the far distance. See the way I'm leaving little marks, little touches here and there. There we are. Loads of figures walking across the road, in the distance there. One or two buildings, two little cars standing on the road perhaps in the distance. But other than that, clean the brush and pull that colour. That's not going to work. Bit of blue in the mix, there we are. Pull that colour across the base like that. Then we introduce a little bit of warmth, a little bit of that light red into that road, because that will help give us depth. We've got a bit more light red along the path area there, like that. And there's a couple of figures there, just got to maintain their position. There we go. And that takes us nicely into that distance area. So we've got the lovely warm distance. Bit of yellow now. This will help reflect the stonework when we finally come to put that in. And if you can introduce as much of the stonework as possible into the early stages of this sort of painting, then obviously you will end up with a better result, in my opinion. But there again, it's only opinions, and opinions do vary, as we all know. So that's the stonework there. Now I'm using a very weak light red now. Well, it should be a little weaker than that, but there you go. For the Lygon Arms. No, it's not a parking area, it's a turning area really. So that's for that. And then finally, I suppose we've got a grey here, have we? Well, I don't know. But that's what I'm giving it anyway. Bit of grey area there. Or is that grass? Let's put it in as grass, shall we? No. Let's just have a bit of fun and put some grass in there. There we go. Look at that. Lovely bit of grass gone in. I think that was grass anyway. And there is grass here. In that area there. Look at that. And then, of course, we've got the lovely warm grass area there, which is always interesting. And then a bit of bit of brown, bit of burnt sienna going in there, a little bit there. And that completes the first stage of this lovely painting. Now the next stage will be, the sun is coming from the right, which is this side, so the next stage will be all the shadow sides. And the first thing I'm going to do to start the shadows, I'm going to use burnt umber with a little Indian red. So it's burnt umber, Indian red, and I'm going to start off with just a little Windsor blue in there as well, but quite a lot of red. Alright, and the first stage will be the very distant area, and this is Cotswold stone, believe it or not, but this is Cotswold stone that in actual fact is in shadow. And to show that, I'm dropping in some ultramarine into the mix and just pulling that down like that. Okay, that's that. Oh right, that's also in shadow. And there's a creeper there as well. So that will show through that shadow. So I'm using the point of the brush to suggest gaps that will be tinted later. Then of course we need gently to pick around this figure. Whoops, that's a nice straight edge in theory. There is a figure there. That's it. Don't make the heads, don't leave the heads to be too large. We don't want large heads. Pull that down a little bit straight. That's lovely. Now, going to add a little bit more blue now into the mix, and less intense colours, so they're not quite as strong in colour, because I'm going to do the chimneys on the shadow sides, there and there, a couple of chimney pots, and then I'm going to do the roof areas there. And what I'm trying to do is to paint all of the shadow work in. Well, they did say it was going to blow a gale today, and they've certainly got that right. So first thing I'm trying to do is to put all of the sort of roof areas that are dark, trying to depict this lovely sort of slate that you get here in the Cotswolds. There we are. And that's pretty much as I see that grey slate. Now we're going to do this one here. That's also a nice grey slate, which is, as I say, a well-known feature of the Cotswolds. Like that. That's good. Then I'm going to add a little raw sienna to that, because I want to show the grey slate with a little bit of yellowing in for that area there. Let's put a bit more blue with that. It's a bit too yellow. And there is a chimney there, I think, which is always a useful feature to take the eye up into the top of the picture, and then I'll come down like that and at that angle, and I'll go right into that bit and take that right out like that. So that's more or less sort of thing I would think I'd be looking for there. Yeah, just make certain it doesn't run up. That must go across. That comes down to there and down to there. There we are, that's good. And then of course a little bit more blue now, because I want to pick up, see I'm doing all the shadow areas. So a little bit more blue in the roof work there, roof work there. Lovely dormer windows they have here in the Cotswolds, always a lovely thing to paint. Good. Now clean the brush thoroughly. To that mix a bit more raw sienna, because I want to depict the Cotswolds, and a bit of light red too, because I want to depict the Cotswold stone that's actually in shadow. So that would be that little area there. Trying to just separate them just a touch, just so as we can see where one finishes and the other one begins. That can be killed back at a later date. There we go. I'm trying to depict strong sunlight, and when you try and do that, you have to be a bit careful, but if you get it to come off, then it adds immensely to the finished painting. Because to me, shadow and light is in many ways more important than anything in a painting, because that's the way I see art, and that's the way I see my buildings. That goes like that, so that's in shadow. Yep. Now this is going to be in similar shadow, but there is a flagpole there with a flag that's flapping at some point there, which is quite sort of thing you'd see at the Lygon Arms. And then there's that creeper again. That's about still, so let's just be a bit careful how we depict that. There we go. That's looking good. Okay, bit more yellow now going in the mix. Still quite dark, but that's for this area here. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint that completely. Bit pots there with some planting in. So I'm doing all of the shadow sides first. No pot there. Sunlit side will come in later. There we go. Oh, and the underside or the inside of that door opening. Now, I think basically we've done all the dark stuff. Now this is where the excitement comes in. It's all these lovely light washes. Now to start, the light colour mustn't be too intense. So, there. I think that's probably enough. Could have a little bit more colour to that. There we are. Be too weak on the colour. Like that. Yep. Now we're going a little bit more intense with that yellow to start. There. There are windows there, but obviously they will be put in at a later time. That's it. Now a bit more yellow and a bit more red. We want that warm sort of honeystone colour to shine through now, and this will be that area there, and then of course we dot that around because there's a creeper there, so we'll only see certain parts of that background colour. Getting a little bit windy yet again, but never mind, just keep plodding. That's what you've got to do under these windy circumstances. There we go. Then more yellow, and this is where it really gets interesting. This is where the sun really picks up onto the gable end. there. And I'm just dragging that down, sweeping that through. See how quick I'm laying that on. And then, after I've laid it on, starting at the bottom, I'm going to lift off in places. Look at that. And then immediately you get lovely sunlight on there. A bit more red going in here, because this is in the foreground. A bit more yellow. Like this, did notice we've got quite a bit of yellowing in these old buildings. Paint around the sign. Bit more yellow. Yeah, go on. We'll paint around that sign, and on the frontage of that, If you notice, I'm not painting everything. That's also a sure mark of creating the impression, the illusion of light. Good. Let's let that dry. Well, while you've been away, I've just touched in that with a grey slate colour. Similar mix to that, only lighter. And I can't quite tell you what that mix was right now. Anyway, so that's, and now put in the roof areas at the top. Oh, and then these are grey sort of slate colours, the capping to the roof, there, a little bit there. There you go, look at that. We've got lovely fill of depth. It's the perspective of the road and everything else, but also the buildings that give perspective running to a focal point somewhere, there, where under the trees. They will be trees shortly, but basically that's working out quite well. Now, Cotswold stone windows. Right, first thing I'm going to depict those is I've pointed the brush and then I just paint down like that, lifting off. Some windows will be a little darker than others, but basically that's the same principle, a little bit more narrow, and I'm going to do that with these as well, but they're leaded lights, I think. But I'm going to do that, with that, with those, with that, and of course some little touches here, because I know there are windows there, and there's a window there, and there's another one there. I know there's one there, there, two little ones in the distance, and that's really all you need. And I'm just going to put the shadow side that I've forgotten on the side of these dormer windows. There we go. As long as it's darker than the roof line, don't think it really matters what colour that is. And that is the windows in. Right, I'm going to put in the red terracotta pots, and I thought I was going to put those in before I did actually show you anything, but I think it's probably a good idea just to show you the way I put them in. I've left the light side, and then I've cleaned the brush and just lightly damped that light side and let that run into that, and there you go, you've got a rounded effect. Now the figure is going to be a lovely red, cadmium red, because there was a figure that was extremely red there. Right, so that's good, and I'm just dropping in one or two of these little red touches here and there in the distance. I don't want to get bogged down with those, not too many of them. Then, as I normally do, is a blue, and that blue is cobalt blue, and that's always my sort of approach, a blue and red figure. There may be some darker ones later on. A burnt umber now that's mixed with a little bit of the blue to create the door, the dark door that's down there like that. Slightly arched roof. There we are. And now I'm putting in ultramarine at the top of that while it's still wet. And down that right hand side. And in the base and picking around the planting in that pot. We are. Now we had quite a off-white, so off-white, oh blue then, that's off-white, or at least in my book it is. That's what these, because it's just the shadow from that creeper that we can see. There we go. A little bit of fiddling to be done there, and of course we've got the red, white, and blue of the flag. So we've given an impression of red, and we'll just give it a little impression of blue, and we just hope that the imagination, if there's not too much water in it, that I think there probably is, gives that impression that we have the red, white and blue. Let's put another bit of blue in there. There we go. We may need to model that, we may not. That's not a problem. Now a bit of yellow, because lots of figures in the distance are of a yellowy tint in places. But can you see how the fact I've left little touches of white paper could be almost anything standing there in the distance. Right, the roof line there is very light, and there is very light, so that's a light version of the roof that's laid in the palette, so that laid there quite nicely. And then we get a dark version, in other words a bit more blue in there, with a little bit of that ultramarine for the somewhat shadowed side of that roof there and there. Left a bit of white on the top. I suppose that helps the illusion again. Now the Lygon sign is quite colourful. I'll be quite honest, I'm not really sure what is on there, but I'm going to put a little bit of red and a little bit of cobalt blue, because that must have some blue in there. Not sure. It's got it now. We'll go. And then, right, no, don't get bogged down with that. Good. A little bit of grey now for these stones. There. They're edging stones really. So you don't need to fill it all in. A little bit of edging there. That's it. And that distance is a little bit of green. There is another little bit of grass there. Let's try and pick up a bit more green. I'm not telling you, not explaining too many colours, mainly because it's a mix really of all sorts. This one is more about tone than colour. Right, finally the little finishing touches. Now to start off, I'm going to use the rigger this time with a very dark brown, because more or less blue brown, so it's ultramarine and burnt umber, and we're putting in, there are some tree shapes that we can see. I think there's another one there, and I don't like to tell you, but I think there's a little bit of rain coming, so that's might interrupt proceedings, because I need to close the board up considerably quickly if that is the case. Right, now a nice blue car, right, frontage there, that's it, comes down the back like that, that's it. And we're not going to have red, no, brown, burnt sienna. Yeah, let's try a drop of burnt sienna for this one here. Not as intense, I'll put that in shortly as that goes out of picture. And then we're going very, very dark blue for the shaded screen, bumper wise, a couple of wheels, and that well, looks like a little buggy. There you go, look at that, that's fantastic. One or two little touches of green here that need putting in. There we go, just in the distance. Right, now I'm going to work backwards, so I'm starting in the distance, a bit more blue in the mix here, so it is burnt umber, but there's blue in there. For the roof line, a couple of darker figures just here and there, because some of the figures will be in shadow for obvious reasons. There we go. Yeah, we can. Oh, and what I need to do, that's all right, I'll put some shadow work around that, no problem. Oh, we've got the Lygon Arms. It's like a shield really, I think. So it's in a dark surround like that. Right, it comes down like that into a really dark area at the base. There we go. And then of course with this dark colour that we've got, there is a lamppost there, typical of what you get here in the Cotswolds, so that's going to be quite interesting. Right, now we've just got to be a little careful what we do here, and a bit there, touch there, touch there, touch under there, little touch there and there. And there's a door there, but I know there's a sign there, so that's also something that needs to be attended to. Good. And as we come forward, dark hair, oh, we're going to have a dog, so that's going to have now you can make up your mind what sort of dog that is at a later date. I'm just making it up as it goes along really. And then we're going to have the legs from that figure. We have the legs from that figure, and there is an arm there. There we go, that's a couple of figures put in. And then just looking at this cloud, it's getting a little bit ominous, as some of you may be able to see. There we go. Put across the top of they're mullioned windows, and this is the way I like to depict them when it looks like rain coming, basically, because it's fast. Right, that comes out there. There's a little bit of architectural feature that needs to be shown there. A little bit of sort of sill area. Main thing is you don't put everything in. Across there, down there, like that, and of course under the roof line there, and then we go dark again, picking up some really dark colour for the gutter. Lovely old gutters they have here. It comes down like that, and then we've got these windows again, always lovely to depict. We're not suggesting, we're actually not painting everything, we're suggesting. That's what we're doing. We're suggesting certain elements. There we go. There's a plate on there and a plate on there. Then we have a gutter again. It is black, but I'm putting it in brown. And then of course we have the sill on all of those windows. We have there again the lovely window shapes there. Always nice to put in. I've gone heavy with that, look at that. There you go. Actually, in fact, I quite like that on those lower ones. So I'm going to do that on all of them. You know, if you like what you're seeing, then why not put it in? There we go. Bit down the back edge and round there. Down the back edge and round there. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that absolutely brilliant? Now, just before we finish, we need some finishing shadows that will completely pull this whole thing together, or it will, well, as I say, either make or break. And we're going to use ultramarine and Indian red. Not too much Indian red initially. We'll reserve that for more of the foreground areas. So we've got a lovely feeling of sort of shadow from there, shadow area there, running across like that. Put a bit more shadow in parts of the roof areas, there, and across there. Oh, and there's some shadows there, and we've got rain. Well, it is raining, but I'm determined to complete this one. So I've come indoors, well, not indoors, but under the shelter, and I'm now putting in these lovely blue shadows. Just having to move something. This is the fun of painting in out of doors, really. Just going to go a little tone darker with that. Just felt that needed a little bit more strength. There is some shadow work there from the figures and the dog, and look at that, the blue shadows, don't they make a vast difference to the overall feel of everything? You know, the lovely blue shadow work. Just stroke it in and watch everything come to life. There we go, look at that. And then finally, if we don't get completely caught with the rain, which is beginning to really come down now, I'm going to have a little bit of subtle shadow across this right hand side. And for that I need my water and a little bit more red in there this time, bit more blue, and just pull that across like that. There you go. And then just let it, then just soften it with a damp brush. And already the whole thing lights up. And that, I'm afraid, is going to have to be the finish of the painting, because I've been rained off. Well, due to the weather, I've had to just come inside to finish off, and I'm just going to do one or two little finishing touches with this rigger.